The birth of a nation that refused to quit. In the beginning there was no promise. No empire. No comfort. Only uncertainty. The land that would one day be called the United States of America was once a wild unknown world. Dense forests. Unforgiving winters. Endless oceans separating hope from survival. Men, women and families crossed those oceans not chasing comfort but chasing possibility. They left behind familiar streets and known lives. They stepped onto a land that offered nothing easily. This is where the American story truly begins. Not with power, but with struggle. Imagine arriving with no guarantees. No protection. No certainty of tomorrow. Only a belief that life could be more than what you were given. That belief became the first brick in the foundation of America. The early settlers did not arrive as heroes. They arrived as ordinary people facing extraordinary hardship. Hunger was common. Disease was relentless. Failure was frequent. Many did not survive, but those who did learned something powerful. They learned that survival demands resilience. They learned that progress demands sacrifice. They learned that freedom is never free. Every broken shelter rebuilt. Every failed harvest replanted. Every loss endured without surrender. This land did not reward weakness. It rewarded persistence. And slowly a mindset was born. A mindset that said, if we fall we rise again. If we fail we learn. If we suffer we endure. This mindset would later define a nation. America was not created by comfort. It was created by courage. As colonies formed, the struggle did not disappear. It evolved. Control came from far away. Decisions were made by those who never walked the land. Never felt the cold. Never buried the dead. Taxes increased. Voices were ignored. Freedom was restricted. And something began to awaken. Not anger alone, but awareness. The realization that human beings are not meant to live forever under the will of others. That dignity matters. That liberty is worth fighting for. Ordinary farmers, merchants, craftsmen began to think differently. They questioned authority. They challenged power. They refused silence. History always changes when people stop accepting less than they deserve. The idea of independence did not start as a war. It started as a thought. A dangerous thought. A powerful thought. What if we govern ourselves? What if we stand on our own? What if we fail trying instead of living controlled? That thought spread like fire. It reached the hearts of men who had everything to lose. Homes, families, lives. And yet they chose resistance over obedience. The American Revolution was not a battle of trained armies alone. It was a battle of belief. Against the strongest empire of its time stood a group of determined individuals with limited resources and unlimited resolve. They were outnumbered, outgunned, undersupplied, but they had something stronger than weapons. They had purpose. Every winter survived. Every retreat endured. Every defeat faced without surrender. This was not just a fight for land. It was a fight for identity. A declaration to the world that freedom is worth the cost. When independence was finally declared, it was not a victory lap. It was a risk. Signing that declaration meant death if they failed. Loss of everything they owned. Erasure from history. And yet they signed. Because progress has always belonged to those brave enough to risk everything. The birth of America was not perfect. It was flawed, incomplete, contradictory, but it was real. It proved something timeless. That ordinary people with extraordinary determination can change the direction of history. This nation did not rise because it was destined. It rose because people refused to give up. And that refusal, that relentless drive, that belief in possibility, would echo through centuries. This is only the beginning, because the real test of America was not its birth, but its ability to rise again and again through division, hardship, war and doubt. A nation tested by division and destiny. Independence did not bring peace. It brought responsibility. A nation born from resistance now had to prove it could survive freedom. There was no blueprint, no historical guide, no certainty. Former colonies had to become one people. Different beliefs, different interests, different visions of the future. Unity was not automatic. It was a struggle. The question was simple but dangerous. How do you keep freedom alive without chaos? The founders knew something critical. Power without limits destroys, but power without structure collapses. So they argued, they disagreed, they debated endlessly, not because they were weak, but because the future mattered more than ego. Out of conflict came a constitution. Not perfect, but intentional. It was built to evolve, to bend without breaking, to protect liberty while maintaining order. This document was more than words. It was a mindset, that no one is above the law, that leadership must serve, that freedom requires responsibility, but ideals alone do not erase human flaws. As the nation expanded westward, opportunity grew. So did contradiction. The land promised hope, but not everyone was free. Slavery existed at the heart of a country that preached liberty. A moral wound ignored for too long. Prosperity for some was built on suffering for others. And history always collects its debts. As America grew stronger, the tension grew louder. Freedom divided. Families split. States opposed. Every generation is tested. This was America's greatest test. The Civil War was not just brother against brother. It was belief against belief. What does freedom truly mean? Who deserves it? And what price are we willing to pay for it? The war tore the nation apart. Cities burned. Lives vanished. Hope trembled. Yet even in destruction something powerful emerged. Sacrifice. Men fought not only for land, but for the future of an idea. That a nation could correct itself. That injustice could be confronted. That progress sometimes demands pain. When the war ended, the nation was scarred, but transformed. Slavery was abolished, not erased from memory, but ended in law. America did not become perfect, but it became accountable. Rebuilding was slow, trust was fragile, unity was earned inch by inch. But the nation endured, because resilience was already part of its DNA. As industries rose, railroads stretched across continents. Cities grew taller, dreams grew larger, immigrants arrived by millions, each carrying fear, each carrying hope. They worked in factories, on farms, in mines. They did not arrive equal, but they arrived believing that effort could change destiny. That belief powered an industrial revolution, built wealth, created opportunity, and widened inequality. Success was possible, but never guaranteed. America was becoming a land where ambition thrived, but pressure crushed the unprepared. Through booms and crashes, prosperity and poverty, one lesson repeated: nothing lasts forever, except the need to adapt. And then the world changed again. Global conflict arrived, dragging America onto a larger stage. The nation that once fought to survive, now had to decide what it stood for. Isolation was no longer an option. Leadership demanded sacrifice once more. And once again ordinary people answered. Factories turned into engines of war. Families endured separation. Lives were reshaped overnight. America was tested not only by enemies abroad, but by fear within. Could democracy survive global chaos? The answer was written in endurance. Through hardship, rationing, loss, and uncertainty, the nation stood, not because it was invincible, but because it refused collapse. History does not reward comfort. It rewards courage. And America was still learning that lesson. This was not the end of struggle. It was preparation. Because the greatest challenges were still ahead. Rising through fire and redefining strength. Victory did not bring rest. It brought a new responsibility. The world looked different after global war. Old powers weakened. New fears emerged. America stood stronger, but not unchallenged. The question was no longer survival. It was direction. Prosperity returned for many. Suburbs expanded. Industry boomed. Confidence grew. But beneath the surface tension remained. The Cold War was not fought only with weapons. It was fought with ideology. With influence. With endurance. Two visions of the future faced each other. One built on control. One built on choice. Fear became constant. The threat unseen. The pressure unrelenting. Yet innovation thrived under pressure. Science advanced. Technology accelerated. Education expanded. The same nation that once struggled to survive winters, now reached for the stars. When Americans looked upward and saw the moon, they saw more than rock and dust. They saw proof that impossible goals surrender to relentless effort. But progress never moves in one direction. While rockets launched upward, Voices rose at home.